Ladies and gentlemen, this is internet personality Vangelus, and CM's Corp really came out of nowhere when they put Transformers Master Force's Minerva into their Gutto Kuru line. Gutto Kuru itself is an odd beast, mixing static figures with posable figures and having anything but a regular style of engineering. My podcasting pal Gogdog did a great video about that side of Gutto Kuru, so please do check it out if you're interested. CM's Corp sculpted up a great Headmaster Jr. in Minerva, capturing the essence of her late 80s armor in clean curves and smooth lines. The only discrepancy I can spot is that it makes her midriff and legs look a tad longer than they did in the TV show, and that's really the only discrepancy. Between the colors and the sculpt, CM's did a bang-up job on Minerva's Transtector armor. Okay, so the Autobot symbol's probably not supposed to have a white border. Who cares? Her head also looks pretty good, with extremely clean paintwork on her face and a decent hair sculpt that's only broken up for the purposes of swapping stuff around. Minerva also comes with her helmet, which looks like it came right out of the show, until you spin it around and notice that the back half is a lighter and shinier shade of red. I don't really get why it wasn't cast in uniform plastic or painted in uniform paint, but it is a bummer. It's also ignorable as long as you look at the helmet primarily from the front. So the obvious question is, how do we get this onto there? Well, this is a crazy little system that CM's Corp came up with, and it only kind of works. One thing you might notice when you start moving her head around with her hair on is it seems a little bit loose and a little bit mushy, and then eventually you're like, wait a second, I can just rip her head off. What? That's because this whole system actually hinges on this red piece. You can see there's all these joints here to allow for the tilting and moving of the head in various different directions, and it's all predicated upon that red connector. The problem is, once you peel her head apart, you'll see that the back of this hair has got a divot in it, right here. And that divot is pretty much shaped to have the red piece here just wedge inside. You kind of just push it in, and it relies entirely on the gripping friction of this pliant piece of yellow plastic. The problem there being that once you start moving it around, it's much easier to just pull that off than start moving the joint around. Part of the reason behind this is that this ponytail piece is connected up inside there, so that when you turn her head, the ponytail is supposed to kind of move left and right just a little bit with her head motions around on top of the backpack, and it gives a kind of natural feel when it works right. The problem is that with the hair piece on, it don't work right. That brings us to the helmet. Now, the helmet, number one, comes apart way too easy. It doesn't grip together very well at all. You might want to thicken up these two wedges here that go inside the slots on this side of the helmet. It's also got this red piece, kind of like a little red divot, and this divot can come out of the helmet, and this divot may also look kind of familiar to you by this point, because it's kind of the same shape as the thing that her head is plugged onto, right here. So you take the helmet and pretty much connect it to that, and once again form the flush back of the helmet, which looks really good. And there you go. Now, in this case, because the movement of her head with the helmet on is pretty much focused entirely around the red piece itself, and not something that's hugging onto the red piece, instead something that's directly connected to it, now the head movement is way more solid. The head can't just be ripped off because it's directly plugged on there, and you can much more easily see what they were going for by keeping the ponytail connected. It's got this really natural tilting to it, which looks really cool. Problem is, this is all just so over-engineered for the ability to have this ponytail shift slightly left and right, and because of the way this was put together, this whole hairpiece thing just doesn't work, and it's a bummer. Now, she is totally not in scale with your usual 6-inch toys, unless she's like a Titanic blonde. I don't know, but that really doesn't work. She's also a little bit too big to work with the NECA scale. Again, like, she just is not supposed to be this big, and her head looks huge, the proportions aren't right. It doesn't work with the NECA scale either. The scale that this seems to work with is, oddly enough, and I don't know how intentional this is, the PlayArts Kai scale seems to be the one that kind of works here, because bear in mind, Minerva is not an adult woman. She is a, high schooler. So this scale, I think, seems to work a bit better, especially once you look at another Gutto Kuru figure that we'll be seeing in the future here on the channel. So she's kind of in PlayArts Kai scale, kind of, and that's sort of crazy. Anyway, let's take a look at those extra faces and see how they stack up. Able to work with either her helmet or hair pieces, Minerva's got a total of 3 face options. We've already seen her basic smirk, but there's also a really happy face and a really action face. They both have their mouths open in that weird tongue fills the cavity anime girl style, and no, I'm just leaving that statement alone. I really wish there was a mouth-closed stern face to go with her basic smirking face, but I'm not sure which of these I'd have replaced if CMs could only include 3 options. There are also some extra pairs of hands to go with her calmly open hands that we've been seeing so far. There are also fists, which are great for replicating the Master Force pose. There are also some jazz hands, splayed out and hardcore dynamic. Finally, there are some gripping hands that, as far as I can tell, are solely to assist Minerva in holding her helmet when she's not wearing it. They work alright, though I find the whole setup way too fiddly to mess with to find a good pose. Alright, we've seen the head already, but we'll take one more look just at the specifics. It can sort of turn left and right. It can kind of click down and click up, but when you click it up, this just doesn't look right. So I don't know. I'm not sure exactly how to make that joint work. The neck joint is the one joint on this figure I still haven't really properly learned, and learning the joints is a big thing with Minerva. We'll go into her arms next, which is one of the first times where you'll see that case. It's really deeply set in here where the arm is connected, but what's cool is this is to preserve aesthetics while still allowing for some posability, because if you kind of click the joint out a little bit, now you've got more of a range of motion, and the shoulder pad can cover up the top of the connection from many positions. And if you click it out again, now you've kind of like unseated the arm, but it's still connected deep inside the torso. Again, check out Gog's video for the specifics on how this engineering works. It's really cool, because it means that you get these kind of like wider arm poses or closer arm poses, and you don't have a lot of the jointing actually showing, and it really preserves aesthetics quite well. So she's got a decent range of shoulder motion, whether you're extending or compressing the shoulder. Her elbow is on a single joint, although it has a pretty deep bend, and it can twist at either connection point, kind of like a Revoltech joint. Her wrists are swivelable, as they connect via a peg. There is a little joint on here, but it doesn't get a lot of range of motion. It only kind of comes inwards. It can't go outwards because of this big piece blocking the movement of the hands. Her elbows, by the way, are the first of the joints that really kind of need to be worked a little to get them to unstick, because they're kind of a pliant plastic that kind of gets maybe a little bit similar to Nika toys, a little bit sticky when you first get the figure. The joint that was most sticky is her ab crunch, because there is actually a hinged joint in there that can bend forward one click, and this is really tricky to do with her backpack on, so I'm just going to pull it off for a second. It can also go... Oh, man. There we go. Now it's back to neutral position, and it can go back a click, too. It's basically this joint, and this took me a little bit of doing to get loose. I basically pulled the top of her torso off and sat here working the joint until I could get it to start moving around. It was very stiff out of the box. Her ball joint was also very stiff out of the box. That's on her waist. There's basically a ball in a cup here, and this one I had to kind of unstick as well. And it gives her a decent little range of motion. Her hips work a lot like her shoulders. Kind of similar to a Fig Arts joint in practice, but much different in the engineering of it. Basically, you can only kind of move her leg around a little bit when it's like this, but the proportions look great, and if you want to move it farther, you again kind of unstick the joint or extend the leg out, and now it can move forwards. It only looks a bit bad from the back. If you get a bit carried away, you might, start having these seams showing up, but it's really cool how they did this joint, and I don't know if it's easy to show you how it works, but basically, that peg goes into that hole, and then this thing hinges around like thusly. So this allows for a really interesting style of hidden joint, and I kind of like how it works, because once you learn how it works, she does have a pretty decent range of movement at her hips. Her knees are double jointed, and the range of motion on them is just fine. If I had one problem with her legs, it would be that I find it's tricky to get them into a good straight posture. They always seem to be just a little bit bent. Once again, the way this hinge connects, I think you can probably twist it at either connection point decently, although mostly it twists at the top here. There's also a thigh swivel up here due to the whole jointing system, but you have to unseat the joint first for that to really start taking effect. Finally, down at her feet, she's got an ankle tilt that's not very deep. It's a little bit limited, and it's more of an ankle wiggle that allows you to figure out a nice flat-footed posture once she has a bit of an A stance going on. The foot can also swing forward and backwards just a bit, not very much at all, and the toe has a whole lot of jointing for some reason. I guess because it is so flat that it gives her a decent standing base if you want to have her in a walking posture. But overall, Minerva's not super posable. She's just decently posable in really unique ways. And she's more posable, especially at her neck, once you pull the backpack off, but I like to leave the backpack on because it feels right. I kind of dig the posability just because it's predicated so much on keeping the engineering as hidden as possible outside of the elbows and the knees. I appreciate that side of it, but if you are an articulation junkie, this is not gonna be your bag. She's not a brick, but her posing options are only slightly limited. There's a really interesting stand included with Minerva that's got nice detented joints and a cool sliding base connection. Unfortunately, it's also terrible for Minerva. Thanks to her backpack, the waist clip can barely get into place unless you have it come in from the front or side, or just remove the backpack. And it's not very good at clasping anything else. This stand is actually pretty nice for other toy lines like Play Arts Kai, but I don't understand what they were going for in packing it in with Minerva. Unless they just have tons lying around and this is some kind of Revoltech style thing where they just have to put it in with everything in the line, I don't know. The big Easter egg and clear love letter to Master Force from the designer is Minerva's backpack. You can actually remove it from her and reveal a ton of detailing packed into the front and rear panels. And craziest of all, there's a two-step transformation to reveal Minerva's headmaster face. This doesn't interact with anything else, so this is simply a case of CMs wanting to show some love to the source material when they could have left this a static and mostly undetailed piece. Minerva's body covers one side while her hair mostly covers the other, so kudos to whoever pushed for adding this to the figure. Gutto Kuru Minelba is quite an oddball piece. Her posability's not awful, not amazing, but incredibly unique in several spots. The engineering in her head and neck is patently ludicrous, almost lovable if it didn't get so much in the way of basic movements. Her greatest strengths are her sculpt and paintwork, which look simply fantastic, and her sometimes strange joint system can hit a few great poses once you learn how it works. Really, the reason why I would encourage considering a purchase of this figure is because it actually exists. This is some niche-ass nicheness, and I'm still kind of amazed that a company not only made a fully featured action figure of a human character from Transformers Master Force, but also did so as a mass production release instead of some kind of Wonderfest malarkey. She's a tad pricey, and certainly not something you should put ahead of actual robot toys if you're a Transformers fan. But do consider her. Watch and read some more reviews, look at photos, and think about it. She's a great curiosity piece for a Transformers collection, and by no means a poor figure outside of the nature of her existence. Anyway, this has been Internet Personality Vangelus, and I hope this has helped share some info on this plastic love letter to Master Force. I'm still pretty amazed that this got made, and doubly amazed that she's not alone.